What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Pan African Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, psychologist, coach, and healer, Dr. Chase Moore. And thank you for meeting me here right at the intersection of psychology, spirituality, and African culture. I'm excited today because we're going to be talking about taking root. That's the title of today's lesson is how do we take root in the midst of storms? How do we get stronger? How do we grow? How do we continue to blossom in environments where we may find difficulty, where we may have to try different things, where we may have to dig down deep into the darkness to find ourselves. And as a father, as a husband, as a school psychologist, as a shaman, I know that many of us have gone through times where we need to dig down deeper, right? But sometimes the Most High will anoint the challenges we have. And so, meaning that there is many blessings on the other side of those challenges. And so the hope is that we'll utilize this art to gain a depth and a spiritual understanding that will encourage us to move forward during these times. So share this with your friends, your families, your loved ones, and let's jump right into it. What you see here is some art depicting a beautiful tree that is strong, that is confident, and that is blossoming. And this tree is growing right out of the middle of the ocean. So, how do we bring these concepts together? The same way we understand life. The ocean represents life, it's full of abundance, a lot of fish in the sea, a lot of opportunities. You can travel the world through the ocean, right? But it also represents challenges because there's storms, there's riptides, there's currents, there's choppy water, there's rough weather. So the ocean represents all of these things that can be potentially wonderful and potentially dangerous. However, when we're anchored and rooted in who we are, we can weather those storms and then be what we need to be for ourselves and for other people. And so, for example, there are many trees that live in the ocean. And those trees that live in the ocean, they are shelter for some fish and animals. They are protection. They are nourishment. And they also get to blossom and be beautiful for themselves and for everyone to look at. So when trees are rooted, then they can serve their ultimate purpose. And so let's go ahead and take it out of the metaphoric lens and bring it into the real lens of us as people. As African people, it's very important that we send down the right roots. And what I mean by the right roots are those roots that are often unseen, but very important to who we are as people. And so our task for this week is to ensure that we're taking time to focus on our guns, which is God, universe, nature, spirit, and self. Our connection to God on a consistent basis is a part of a root system that will keep us strong. It's a part of building a relationship that will keep us healthy. And so we do this through developing a unforced relationship with the Most High and with Spirit. So my question to you is, how do we develop that unforced relationship with God? What kind of open, honest communication do we need to start to cultivate that relationship this week? Next, universe. How do we start to move in rhythm and in harmony with the universe? If we can think about the concept from the Kabbalion, as above, so below. So, what is happening in the stars is happening to us energetically down here. So, how do we start to understand how the cycles of life, how the cycles of the universe are impacting us? Can we gain some type of knowledge and understanding of the patterns that we go through as people? Because, and that's a question for you. Do you have patterns? Can you ask someone close to you? Do you have reciprocal patterns that you go through each month, each week, each year? Can you understand that better? Nature. How do we get back in tune with nature, with the natural grounding compounds that God has given us? How do we get back in tune with naturally feeling and perceiving our experience? Because for many of us, because of the types of food we eat, because of the type of relationship we have with others, we have lost that natural connection to the earth and to other people. And so, how do we start to really cleanse ourselves again so that this vessel can accurately perceive other people, can accurately project what they want to other people? Spiritually, how do we start to utilize spirit again in our life? How do we start to regain some of the things that in previous generations we had in terms of spiritual understanding, spiritual vision, spiritual insight? These are things that come about when we start to align our guns, when we start to align being in a close, intimate relationship with God, understanding the universe and its cycles, being in an intimate relationship with nature, right? And now we're spiritually perceiving things accurately. And last but not least, self, starting to get to know ourselves. And as a school psychologist, that's one of the things that I think is really important when working with children is understanding that the only person we can never escape is ourselves. So if you don't have a good relationship with yourself, if you don't have nourishing thoughts for yourself, if your inner critic is really loud, then that's going to make it really difficult for you to have your guns aligned because very important to be kind to yourself, very important to speak life into every situation. There's a book called The Biology of Belief, and Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about how 95% of our days are run on subconscious scripts. And so if you have negative subconscious scripts going, then you are going to be fulfilling that reality consistently. And so, how do we consciously align ourselves with God, universe, nature, spirit, and ultimately self to start creating and manifesting and living in the reality we want? And so, Don Miguel Luis, he wrote the book, The Four Agreements. He talks about the Toltecs. Toltec is a word that means artist, and it's about co creating life with the Most High, with God. How do we co create life with God? So I bet y'all didn't think that we can get all of that out of this picture. So that's kind of what we do at the Pan African Wellness Podcast is we take imagery and we really, really flesh it out and we get the most out of it and understand concepts at a very deep and high level. So ultimately, to close out with this image, what I want us to do for this week is think about how we can start to align God, universe, nature, spirit, and self, because those are the five roots that we want to dig down deep, because that's what's ultimately going to allow us to grow up. So, going back into the metaphoric realm, it's important that if you seek to grow tall, if you seek to bear fruit, you have to equally seek to dig those roots down deep into the earth and to where you are by being mindful and present related to God, universe, nature, spirit, and self. All right, let's move it along, y'all. Next one, let me move my picture over here and I want to show you the image of taking root, which is a journey into ourselves. Okay. And so what you are seeing here is you got an African American man, African black man here with his pants rolled up, and you see his feet in the soil, grounded, and you see roots coming out, right? And you're like, man, you're really into this metaphor of taking root. I am. But what I want you to notice about this is for us, just like in, how trees grow, they have to really dig down deep into the soil, into the darkness, with faith and trust to find nourishment, to find where that water is, to find how they can grow and where they can move. And so before we seek to do anything, as African people, it's important that we ground ourselves and get rooted into every situation. And so, one thing that I want to teach us all is that whenever you go into a room, whenever you go into a space, it is important to clear the field and ground yourself. This is how we create consistent interactions, consistent energy, and ensure that and then, this is not mumbo jumbo, but this is how we clear the field, right? And ensure that we don't let other people's energy impact us. Because how many of us have been impacted by maybe someone with a very negative personality at work, or someone who's going through something and their energy is always negative? They want to release and dump everything on you. Um, that's not healthy, right? And so the way we do this is to ground ourselves in every moment. You come into a room, you clear the field, and clearing the field means that you set your own intentions. You set what it is that you align with. So I'll come into a room and say, I align with peace, I align with health, I align with abundance, I align with truth and trust. And that's the energy I'm bringing into this room. Anything else I'm not resonating with, I'm not accepting. And so many times, a lot of stuff won't even approach me. I've had people say, "Man, you always seem to not be around when the drama happens," and it's because I set my intentions. I root myself in each environment that I'm in. And so this is a part of our African culture. It's about understanding how God has given us wisdom and through nature, right? And so trees, they have wisdom. They give us water, fruit, medicine, but ultimately what they're teaching us is how to survive and how to be nourishing on this earth. And so here, this is a representation and a meaning for you, no matter where you go, y'all. We have to clear the field and we have to root ourselves in what it is that we want to align with in that particular space. And as we start doing that more consistently, you'll see that all the environments that you navigate, all the environments that you enter, they will start to yield to your energy, right? You have to be someone who can transmute. Transmute means take energy just like a tree and transmute it into something that serves the environment. Transmute that energy. So your task for this week, as it relates to this imagery and this art, is to start to practice grounding and rooting yourself in all the environments that you enter. Start to establish what you align with in this and what you in this particular space and what you want to resonate. Be intentional about who you want to be and what you will receive. All right, let's move it along. All right, we got some more art here, and I'm creating this art, y'all, through um, Leonardo AI. So what you see here is, again, another tree, and you see top roots. The top roots are very thick, look strong, and they're digging down into some topsoil. But what you see again are those few roots that are going down even deeper, looking almost mysterious, right? So you see those roots are going down into what I'm going to call here the spiritual world. So what I want to teach you guys about is the different levels of being able to take root and what they give you and how you can use them. The first level is the psychological level. Psychologically, our roots can be thought of as our core beliefs, our values, and experiences that shape us. They are the hidden structures beneath our surface, the things that determine how we respond to challenges, how we see ourselves, and how we move throughout the world. These are the things that we can call either ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, or we can call them protective factors. These are the things that structure your psychological makeup and even your emotional makeup, right? So when you encounter a situation, a person, or a challenge, how are you going to respond? That's going to be based on your psychological roots. These are things that you can work through with a therapist, with a friend, with a close family member who loves you, and through self reflection. It's good to know your psychological roots because if you can name it, you can tame it. Meaning, if you can identify what's going on psychologically, why is this person triggering me? Why am I drawn towards this? And why do I like that? Then you can be more conscious and conscientious about how you um, learn, grow, and move in the world. And that's going to elevate you as a person so that you can start to work through the reasoning and the third eye, right? So if you want to vibe higher, being conscious of your roots, your psychological roots is the way to go. And there are new roots that are going to come about. Each experience is a new root. That's why as trees get older, they have millions of roots. Now, let's take this a little bit deeper and a little bit further, y'all. And so if you see in the image, in the picture down here, those roots that go into the mystical world, those are the spiritual roots. And what are our spiritual roots? Spiritual roots are the connection to the divine, our ancestors, and the collective wisdom of those who've come before us. And so in African spirituality, it teaches us that we don't stand alone. We're backed by generations of wisdom, by unseen forces that guide and protect us. But like a tree, if we don't nourish these roots, if we don't dig deep into these roots, they won't sustain us through the tough storms. And so, with that said, I want us to take some time this week and really think about what are our spiritual root systems. And for those of you who may not be into psychology or psychologists, really what I'm trying to ask you is what sustains you when the physical world is not sustaining you. When you need the most high, what is it that you do? How do you call upon? How do you access the most high? So metaphorically, how do you reach down to more nourishing water or nutrients? How do you get there? And as an example, for me, I do that through prayer and meditation. I do that through being in nature, going on walks. I do that through movement, Pilates, yoga. I've had some very, very great insights that have come from yoga and movement. Like one time, I'm in the class and I'm holding postures and I'm sweat's popping off my head. And after every pose, I'm just circling on my mat. And the yoga instructor came over and was like, be still. And that was insightful because I realized that as adults, we have so much autonomy over our life that we don't realize when we're throwing tantrums, right? When we are uncomfortable and when we're just moving and needing something to do, needing something to happen. And the insight I got from that particular situation is that sometimes you just need to be still. Yes, you're uncomfortable. Yes, it's difficult, but allow the yoga to do its work. Allow nature to take its course. Allow God to do its work. God to do God's work. And so what I'm trying to say is that we have to find those spiritual root systems that we can tap into because there's so much insight there. And so for you, I'm asking you, what are some of your spiritual roots, some of the things that you do to access God and God's energy? All right, let's continue on. So I want to ask questions, some questions for you. My questions for you are what grounds you? Do you have practices, relationships, or beliefs that keep you steady when life is uncertain? Second question, What part of your past still nourishes you, and what parts no longer serve you? Are there old wounds or generational patterns or limiting beliefs you need to heal? Third question: how do I stay connected to my ancestors, my history, my lineage? Have I taken time to learn my family stories and honor where I come from? And the last question is: what values do I live by? Do my daily actions reflect what I believe in? All right, y'all. We're nearing the end for this episode. So, your challenge for this week: strengthening your roots. And as you see here, let me show y'all this image, right? How do we strengthen those root systems? Your call this week is to reconnect with history. I want you to call an elder or read about your ancestry or learn a cultural practice that has been passed down to you. Call an elder, read about your ancestry, or learn about a cultural practice that has been passed down to you. Second, ground yourself in daily ritual, whether it's prayer, meditation, journaling, or walking in nature. Create a space to nourish your inner world. Number three, examine your beliefs. I want you to identify a limiting belief that has been holding you back and replace it with a truth that strengthens you. And last, honor your resilience. Reflect on a hardship you've overcome and acknowledge the strength you've already possessed. I want to appreciate everybody for joining me today. Again, I am your host, psychologist, coach, and healer, Dr. Chase Moore. Thank you for tuning in to the Pan African Wellness Channel, meeting me at the intersection of psychology, mental health, and African spirituality. We will see you on the next round. Peace.